Hello and welcome to the F1Stop show with me, Sam Oney, your host, and with Wes Spearman as well. Wes, how are you doing today?
Yeah, I'm good. I think you were going to say Afterburners podcast then. There was a little pause.
Yeah,
But yeah, I'm good. I look a bit tired on
yeah,
camera. Obviously, listeners, not viewers, won't be able to see that, thankfully. But yeah, I've had it's been a long day, but a fun day. But yeah, I'm good. How are you?
yeah. I'm good. I'm good, thank you. Now, F1, we're doing the launches, and we've had some pretty good car launches so far. Haas, Aston Martin, Red Bull. Yeah, it's been great. But now let's talk about recent ones that have more cars have come out with their new challengers. We have McLaren, AlphaTauri, Williams, who launched yesterday, and Ferrari, who also launched today. So let's get into it. Let's start with McLaren then. Your favorite team. Do you want to tell us about their car?
Yeah, I think, well, obviously, McLaren, they're stuck with the sort of papaya orange as the main color, which is what I think everyone expected, really. But they've gone a bit more blue this time. There's a bit more sort of that light blue on the car. It's not quite uh, Golf-esque. It's not quite the Golf livery they ran in Monaco, but I think it's quite good. There's a bit more black on there, which I don't know what I think about that. To be honest, I think I prefer it if it was a bit more blue than black. Having said that, I do still quite like it. I know a lot of people can't quite decide whether they like it, whether they don't like it. It's sort of, I think a lot of people, from what I've seen on social media at least anyway, have given it a sort of rating around about the 6 mark. And I don't know, I mean, being a McLaren fan, I suppose I am a bit biased, but I do quite like it. I think the side is a bit awkward compared to last year. I don't know if awkward is the right word, but I don't know if I like the sort of black strip of sponsors on there. I think maybe if that was blue or just some other, if that was done a little bit better, perhaps, then it could have just nudged that livery up a mark or two. But overall, as a livery, I do quite like it. I mean, we're sort of used to a bit of black on McLarens, especially in the Honda days of recent anyway, but when the
Yeah,
cars were pretty much all black. Yeah, I do quite like the sort of free tone, if you like, the orange, the blue, the black. I think it all works quite well, despite what everyone on social media seems to think. What do you make of it?
yeah. I think it's quite a good car. Like so. One thing I like about it is the color scheme as well. Because McLaren is orange and blue, the black. That's great as well. Also, the front wing, you know, not very nicely presented, and the nose, which I've mentioned before, is a lot slimmer. Well, the way I see it, than last year's car. It's a lot slimmer than last year's, which is really great. Um, the only thing I'll complain about is the side skirt and the Velo sponsor logo. I don't think it's in the right place.
Yeah, I have seen a lot of that. People saying, yeah, it just doesn't look quite right, almost.
Yeah,
Maybe I think if it was perhaps a bit further back on the car, maybe, or sort of pretty much right where the engine is, then maybe it would be okay. Or maybe sort of on top of the air intake, if you like, sort of above that black strip they have now, then maybe they could have worked that a bit better, as you say. But yeah, sorry, I've just interrupted you there to continue.
no, 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 carry on, no. But yeah, I think yeah, I like it, and also one thing that I want to point out in these car launches is I think I read something on social media. I think you shared it with me where Aston Martin and McLaren were actually comparing their cars. I think somebody said that you should look out for the actual design around the cockpit or the side skirt. So just to like
Yeah.
compare it. And I looked at McLaren's one and I thought it was all right, but there wasn't really anything that stood out around that side pod cockpit area. What did you make of it?
Yeah, I think the McLaren, I mean, as from what we've seen so far, I think the two suppose standouts that have done something slightly different are Aston Martin with the grille sort of on top of the side pods, and with the Ferrari, which we'll get onto a bit later, with again sort of vents sort of round the air intake, the airbox, and I think quite slim air intakes on the side pods themselves. But yeah, we'll, as I say, we'll have a look into that in just a couple of minutes. But yeah, I think McLaren have, I think I wouldn't say gone safe, because we don't really know how these cars are going to perform yet. We don't know what's safe, what isn't. But
These are new
yeah, it's
cars.
interesting that even now, I mean, we've had, I mean, I know we've had most of the car launches now, but it's interesting how each team has operated sort of slightly differently. I mean, obviously they did that before, but these new regulations are just giving teams a new opportunity, if you like, to just do something slightly different, to see if they can figure out something that none of the other teams have in this new aero regulation rule book, whatever you want to call it. So yeah, I mean, we might see something different with Alfa Romeo, or I mean, Mercedes might come out with something different to any of the other cars as well. We just don't know yet. But yeah, I'm looking forward to see how sort of each car performs on track, whether Aston Martin have nailed it with the vents on top of the side pods, whether Ferrari have nailed it with their slightly different design as well. So yeah, well, I mean, testing isn't, I mean, the first race isn't that long away. I think is that time of recording a month tomorrow, the 18th of March, is when the first practice session in Bahrain gets underway. It's really not that long. So another 4 or 5 episodes, episodes, we're talking about the Bahrain Grand Prix.
Yeah, I'm excited. And another thing, I'll be testing as a good opportunity to see what the timesheets could potentially be in a race, because you know, new cars, new era. We've never, like, you know, we've never driven these kind of cars before, so it's going to be quite intriguing to see the kind of timesheets that these cars and the drivers pull off. Are they going to be a second quicker, a second slower compared to last year's turbo era? Who knows? So
exactly.
yeah.
Who knows? I mean, yeah, testing, I mean, it doesn't quite replicate race conditions, but because everyone's running sort of different setups, different fuel loads, different tires, etc. But it will give us some indication of where the teams are in terms of performance and compared to each other, compared to last year. And again, yeah, hopefully, I mean, again, as a McLaren fan, I can only hope that they continue on the upward trend that they've been going on for the last few years.
So McLaren have launched their MCL 36. How would you rate this out of 10? With 0 being out the front door, and then 10 being amazing, glorious. Let's have another one.
I wouldn't say it's amazing. There are a few issues with it, but
yeah,
I mean, this might just be me being biased to McLaren, but I kind of want to give it an 8, but I'm going to go 7. Just because there are a few little tweaks that they could do to make it a bit better. But yeah, I think 7 is a fairly solid score for the McLaren.
Sensible. That's sensible. Sensible. If we had 0.5s, I would have said 0.5, but I'm gonna give it a 6 out of 10. I just think
that's fair, I think, yeah.
Compared to last year's one, what I liked about last year's livery was that they had the orange and the blue in the right places, especially along the side skirts and towards the front wing. Whereas this year with the black, it's okay, but I just thought it's almost kind of not ruined, but it hasn't made the car, you know, stand out. It's not as interesting as last year's one. So I'm gonna give it a 6 out of 10 for me.
Yeah, I think that's fair. I mean, going by what people have said on Twitter and Instagram and what have you, I think a 6 or a 5 or a 6 is the general consensus.
Right. So from McLaren to AlphaTauri. Now, when this car came out, I thought, wow, they've really outdone themselves. They've really outdone themselves. I thought it was pretty good. I mean, the car AlphaTauri, it looks so bold. It looked as if it had gone from like a boy to a man kind of thing. So last year's one was a little boy, but this year's just upgraded. Do you get what I mean?
I sort of get what you mean, and it is fairly minimalistic, simplistic in its design. They've essentially inverted the colors they had last year. So where there was white last year, there's now this sort of navy blue color, which I think I do quite like. And at first sign, I wasn't a massive fan of it. I'm not quite sure why, but on second look now, it does actually look quite cool. The only, I think, downside to it is that on the sort of side bits of the front, I don't know the technical name for them, but the sticky out bits on the front wing or the side with the Flexbox branding, that doesn't quite work. I think mainly because the X's in the Flexbox are orange, which doesn't quite go with the color scheme of the AlphaTauri itself. But
Yeah,
I do quite like it. It is, I think, a bit basic. Perhaps maybe they could have had some red on there or something to sort of an homage to the Toro Rosso days, perhaps. But overall, as a livery, I think it's all right. I think I mean, it's AlphaTauri in a nutshell. I think,
yeah, yeah.
given what they've done last few years since the rebrand, I think, yeah, I don't think they could have done too much more. I think it looks quite good.
It does. It does. I think my favorite part about the car is where the AlphaTauri logo is. Like just next to the side pod. Sorry. Yeah. So I think that's probably my favorite part of the car, the livery, where the logo was, and I thought they pulled it off really well. So I'm probably gonna give it a 7.5 actually, 7.5 out of 10. So I
I'd probably
thought it
give
was
it
really
up.
good.
Yeah, I'd probably give it a 7 as well. Again, I think to get a couple more marks off me, it would have to be a bit more, not necessarily complex, but be a bit more, stand out a bit more, if you like.
Hmm.
I think it's just blue and white. Really, there's not that
Yeah.
much more to it. I mean, as you say, I like the AlphaTauri name on that side pod. And another thing I've only just noticed actually is, again, it seems that every team has got a slightly different sort of side pod design. The sort of air intakes on the
Yeah.
side. AlphaTauri's is quite square, I've just noticed. So yeah, maybe that's something Red Bull have helped them with. I don't know, but yeah, again, it'll be interesting to see whether that has much of an effect compared to, say, Ferrari or McLaren or Red Bull or Mercedes. Who knows? But yeah, we'll have to wait and see in testing.
Yeah, it's gonna be great. Really excited for it. Now, Williams. I think Williams rather well. How do you? All right, Williams have gone from white and blue last year to a moderate white and blue livery last year, and they've completely changed it to a striking dark blue car. What do you make of it? Did you expect it at first?
I didn't know. I expected it to be somewhat similar to last year with a bit of white on the car. I think that's what we've sort of been used to with Williams over the last sort of few years. I mean, when they had the Martini branding, the sort of the light blue, the red to go with the white on the back of the car, but obviously they've since lost that sponsorship deal. So they've had to change their car slightly differently, or paint their car slightly differently. I was reading, I think it was WTF1's article on them sort of rating the car liveries, and I can't remember who actually wrote the article, but they said last year's Williams car was one of the worst liveries ever in F1 history,
Oh, wow.
and I disagree with that. I think when the last year's livery came out, we were both a bit like it was a bit basic and
Yeah,
it didn't actually do it that good. But I think on track, it actually worked really well.
yeah. It changed my mind when I
This,
was seeing it on track.
yeah,
Yeah,
this year, I don't know, it is quite bold because it is, as I say, just all dark blue. There's no white on there whatsoever besides obviously sponsorship and numbers. I would have liked to seen a bit more white on there. Whether it, I mean, I don't really know where. To be honest, maybe
it
sort of
brings
similar
me
to
it
last year.
brings me to my next question then. If you're an F1 designer, put in the graphic design. Let's take Williams for example. What colors would you use and where would you put them?
Well, I think obviously the main colour for Williams is a sort of dark blue, so I can understand why they've gone that for this year's car. But if I think back to the iconic Williams cars of like the 90s when Damon Hill won with Williams, I can't remember his name, Nigel Mansell, Jacques Villeneuve, the sort of blue, the white, the red numbers, sort of yellow gold color on there. I'd have liked to have seen something a bit like that rather than just all navy blue, really.
Yeah.
I think looking at it on track, I think it looks a bit better than the sort of renders, the pictures they've released, if you like. But I think it caught quite a few people out because people weren't expecting it to be quite so bold and striking and just all blue, essentially. I think people, exactly, you got your hand up now, it caught you out, it caught me out as well. Because I was expecting it to sort of be an upgrade on last year. But yeah, they've redesigned the car, and as I say, on looking at the pictures now on with it on track at Silverstone, it actually looks okay. I don't think it's not the best livery Williams have done by any stretch of the means, but it looks better on track than it did in the pictures, I think.
Yeah, that's the FW44, I believe. That's what they've called it.
It is, yeah.
Yeah.
Well remembered.
I took my chances, but yeah, Williams. So Williams car, a totally new, striking blue. What would you give it out of 10?
Good question. Just having another look at it in the picture now, it sort of reminds me of last year's Alpine a little bit.
Oh,
just in a similar shade of dark blue.
Yeah. That was a good car, Alpine, last year. Just saying.
The Alpine, yeah, Alpine did have one of the best liveries last year. I think by our points standings anyway. But I think I'm going to give it a 6 for Williams. I think it's okay. I think they could have gone a little bit better with a bit of white and maybe a bit of yellow on there, maybe a bit more red just to stand out a bit more. But yeah, as I say, it looks better on track than what I initially expected anyway.
Yeah, I mean, it may have caught out a lot of people. People may have opinions on it. They may like it. They may have, it could have been better. But I'm gonna say 6 out of 10 as well. I just think it just lacks more color. Like the blue is great, but I think they could have added basically what you said, a bit of white, a bit of red, just to make it stand out. So yeah, because compared to last year, there was a lot of dark colors, a lot of navy. So, and looking at this year's one, there's Red Bull, there's Red Bull Williams, so yeah, a 6 out of 10 for me for the Williams car. Sensible one. Now,
yeah, I think just going back to Williams for a second, they've got sort of these almost pinstripes of a light blue running up the side of the nose of the car. I think a bit more of that, not necessarily white, but just some sort of contrast on there would be quite nice. I mean, there is a bit on the side, but not that much from what I can see in the pictures that I'm looking at now anyway. But yeah, I'll have to wait and see it on track on TV also. Yeah.
And so last one for today, Ferrari, who launched today. Well, Ferrari really pulled it out the bag almost, because if you think back at it, we had Red Bull, which was fairly okay. Aston Martin really came out the blocks running. Put them on a 100-meter race. I think Aston Martin would be the clear winner of all the liveries we've had so far. But yeah, Ferrari, what do you make of those? I thought it was absolutely stunning with the red.
Yeah, I don't think there are many more words that can describe this year's Ferrari. It is absolutely gorgeous. And compared to what we had last year, which in the numbers looked like they were sort of a child's drawing, if you like, not quite that sort of effect. It just looked a bit sort of pencily. And they had this sort of horrible bright green Mission Winnow branding
Yeah,
on the top of the car, which I don't think really worked at all. And I didn't mind the sort of fade to a darker red at the back of the car, but I think this year they've absolutely nailed it. They've got the red and the black just works really, really well.
it does.
I mean, it's sort of similar to um, Ferraris of a few years ago, except is now black where it was white, which again I still think looks really well. I think some of the older Ferraris, maybe the 90s, had like black wings or something like. I saw a picture of that. I can't remember which which car it was, but it was something in the 90s. A red car, black wings, and that's exactly what they've gone here, and it looks absolutely fantastic. I mean, it's given Aston Martin a run for their money in terms of best livery
Mm.
of the year. I mean, we've got 3 more car launch, so maybe one of them will shove either Ferrari or Aston for a top spot. But it's going to be a close call between Aston and Ferrari at the moment, anyway, as to who's got the best livery, because
Yeah,
it's just beautiful, isn't it?
I don't know what it is about the side pods, but it reminds me of like the actual Ferrari road cars. It just
Yeah.
looks so gorgeous. I want to take it out for a ride. I want to drive it.
Yeah, I mean, we've said with Aston Martin, they've got these sort of vents on top of the side pods, whereas Ferrari has done the same, except at sort of a slight angle, sort of a bit further up than Aston Martin, but not fully on like the side of the air intake. But yeah, looking at it now, it does sort of look like an old Ferrari Testarossa from the 80s. That sort of almost like chiseled side, if you like, which yeah, I do quite like. And again, it's another team who's done a different design, looked at the rules, thought, is this going to help give us an advantage over other teams that perhaps don't see this? So again, it's Aston Martin and Ferrari who have gone with these sort of vents, if you like, on top of the side pod. So interesting to see how those 2 teams in particular come out after testing. But yeah, it's I mean, another thing with the Ferrari in terms of design, it looks quite flat, if you like, because the side pods they're quite wide, but they're quite narrow. Sorry, that's a bit contrasting. They're quite wide, but quite short as well.
Mm.
They're not, compare it to say AlphaTauri, which is quite square. These are quite long and thin.
Yeah,
So again, it's just these different designs because of these new rules and regulation. The nose also looks quite wide compared to some of the other cars. So again, maybe that's something that Ferrari thought, all right, this is going to help us get back into a championship winning position with the car. They've got 2 fantastic drives in Charles Leclerc and Carlos Sainz. So if they've nailed this design with those side pods, those vents, and the nose, and they've got the drivers to win the world championships, I think so. Hopefully Ferrari can get back on at least a few top steps of the podium this year.
yeah, definitely. So where do the ratings stand then out of 10? I think the highest I've given so far is 7, or did I go 8 for Aston Martin? I'm not quite sure.
I can't remember now.
I
It was
can't
only a week
remember
ago.
now. Right, no,
I don't remember what I gave it. I might have gave it a 10. I can't remember now.
I think I've
We
given,
might have to after all the car launch, we might have to go back and sort of revise them based on what we've actually seen now.
yeah, I think so. I think that's a great idea. So, okay then, Ferrari then.
It's a tough one. Is it going to be on the same level as Aston Martin? Is it going to be slightly lower? If I'm going to give I'm going to go 9.5 for
Wow,
Ferrari. I
wow,
don't
that
think
is
it's
huge.
quite as good as the Aston Martin.
That
If I
is
didn't give
huge.
Aston Martin a 10 last week, I'm giving Aston Martin a 10 this week. But yeah, 9.5. It's just something that doesn't quite stick out to me as much as the Aston Martin, but is obviously definitely up there for me. 9.5 out of 10 for
Mm,
this year's Ferrari.
that's a huge score. I think I gave Aston Martin quite a high score as well, probably 9.5, because I loved it. It was great. Ferrari, I mean, they've outdone themselves. They really have. Um, so it'll be great that I give them a 9 out of 10. I just think the vents, the whole car, it looks so aggressive, you know, celebrating 75 years of Ferrari with the F1 75. I think some people were almost confused as to who came up with these names for Ferrari, because they've been quite different over the years.
Yeah,
But
they have had some odd names. They had like the F1000, the F45, and it's like, if you look at Williams, they've gone F42, F43, FW44,
yeah,
Mercedes as well, W11, W12, W13.
yeah,
It's odd, but who really cares about the name of the car? If it performs well and drives well and looks as good as it does,
that's the
who
important
gives a
thing.
sod about the name?
That's the important thing after all. Yeah. So yeah, nine out of 10 for 9 out of 10 for Ferrari. I thought they really did it. Right, sprint racing is back for F1 2022. Taking place in Italy, Austria, and Interlagos again in Brazil. Sprint racing is back. What do you make of it? Do you like it? Do you not like it?
I'm not too sure. To be honest, I haven't watched or I didn't watch many of the sprint races last year. But from what I gathered from sort of general sort of sentiment is that they're okay. It's another race for fans to watch if you're at the track. But I mean, for me, I still quite like the usual sort of free session qualifying, the knockout system that we have now.
You spoke about it
I
last
don't
year.
see I don't see a problem with that. So one thing they have changed with sprint races is it's now the top 8 that get points rather than just the top 3. So you get 8 points if you first, and then lose a point the further down you go. But I don't know, should qualifying be affecting the World Championship, the actual races? I'm not too sure, because yeah, sprint racing is a race, but at the same time, it's also qualifying. And I don't know. I'm just not quite sure how I think about it. I think perhaps a bit more testing should go into it. So maybe 3 races is a good number to, I would say, start off with. Obviously, they started off last year, but yeah, different tracks this time. So they've gone Imola, Austria, and Brazil. So 3 quite fast tracks. I mean, I suppose there were 3 quite fast tracks last year with Silverstone, Monza, and Brazil as well. But yeah, maybe different tracks they'll provide a better spectacle. Who knows? But yeah, I still don't know how I feel about them. Really, I'm not sure if I'm for. I'm not sure if I'm against. I'm probably leaning slightly towards the against, but that's probably just because I haven't really watched any of them, to be honest. I haven't properly engaged with them, if you like, compared to how I would a traditional qualifying session. I suppose if I was at the track, then I quite like it because you get another race instead of a practice session. So there's actual competition rather than cars just going around testing setup for the weekend, which if you're at the track, as I say, would be quite good. It'd be more entertaining. But as the whole weekend goes, I think for now anyway, I prefer the usual 3 session qualifying, Q1, Q2 through Q3, get it done in an hour, and you got the grid for the main race on the weekend, which is where the actual points are, if you like. But yeah, that's me. What do you make of it?
Yeah, I think. I mean, I prefer the normal format. With the 3 qualifying sessions, and then the top 10 in Q3 battle it out for where they're going to start. But one thing I like about this year's one is the actual new point system. The top 8 getting points with 8 points for the race winner all the way down to 8th place. It gives teams, especially the midfield teams in particular, more chances of getting points. So if you're a McLaren or a AlphaTauri or an Alpine, you have more of a chance to get at least 3-4 points. So I think it's a great opportunity for these teams. So maybe it's a good idea that they've included sprint racing this season.
Well, I mean, sorry, go on.
Yeah, I was just gonna say, I was just gonna mention that one of the tracks that could be a standout, Austria. We know that Austria is quite a short track, and we see relatively longer laps in Austria. I think it's like 70 or something, 70 laps in a race. in Austria. So
Something
I,
like that, yeah.
I think I'll be quite interested in how that sprint race comes about, because you know it's just all about positioning, and so it's going to be very exciting.
It might be and it might not be, because thinking back to last year's two Austrian Grand Prix, they were two of the most boring races of the year. I think Max Verstappen just dominated. So I mean, is sprint racing a sort of all or nothing thing going to work at Austria? Maybe we'll have to wait and see. But yeah, I do like that they're mixing up the tracks. It's not just like Silverstone, Monza, Brazil. I mean, yeah, Brazil's on for another year, but Brazil was easily the most entertaining sprint race of
It
last year.
was.
So I mean, maybe Imola and Austria will provide something different, some more entertainment. Who knows?
So last year we saw a lot of drama. We saw Max Verstappen and Lewis Hamilton going at it on track, but also off. Well, still on track, but the FIA and the race directory has come under a lot of fire, especially in the season finale last year in Abu Dhabi. Cue Michael Masi. Right. For those who don't know, it was Max Verstappen against Lewis Hamilton, winner takes all in Abu Dhabi. Um, last lap drama. Williams, Nicholas Latifi had a crash, and so Michael Masi ended up, calling the race. And some of his race decision making in how the race ended did not did not go well with F1 fans. And for that, his job was, well, under fire. And it was confirmed today that he was no longer a race director for F1. What do you make of it? Not surprised.
No, I'm not really surprised, to be honest. I think, as you say, the decisions he made in the outcome of the race at Abu Dhabi were completely and utterly wrong, because they didn't go. He didn't go by the rule book. Essentially, he made them up. I wouldn't say made them up as you go along, but he sort of did in a way as well. Whether
If
he
you
was
have
swayed
if you
by
have rules that they're supposed to be followed, why are you not going to follow them?
exactly, yeah. I mean, whether he was swayed by Jonathan Wheatley at Red Bull, I think Max Verstappen's race engineer, then if he was swayed, then that's another decision, another reason why he shouldn't be race director. If he can be influenced by teams getting on the radio to him, then that's not race director material, really. That's not management material, to be honest. But yeah, he's gone, and I think a lot of people in F1, certainly fans, and certainly Lewis Hamilton fans in particular, will be quite happy that he's gone. And we've got two guys in to replace him, Niels Wittich and Eduardo Freitas, who will alternate race weekends. So I don't know who, obviously, who's going to go first, but yeah, they'll sort of share race director duties this weekend. They worked in the World Endurance Championship and DTM, and they've got Herbie Blash, who was deputy when Charlie Whiting was still alive and race director for several years. So, I mean, now there's where there was sort of one race director, you now got three in some sense. So you got more opinions, which could lead to more debates, but it could also lead to a more streamlined sort of outcome. Whereas if all three agree on the decision, then great. But if one person doesn't agree, then there's space for debate and chance to look at the rules. And rather than one person just have complete authority over what's going on, you now got two or all three voices in there as well. So I mean, I look forward to see how that turns out. But I mean, yeah, so long as nothing like the fallout from Abu Dhabi or the race at Abu Dhabi, well, the last lap essentially
Yeah.
happens again, then it can only be a good thing for F1.
I mean, I just hope that the rules are followed, with these new guys coming in to direct these races, because what you don't want in Formula One is just wrong decisions being made, which is not only going to affect what's like the drivers on track, but fans are not gonna you're gonna get on the fans' bad side. You know what I mean? It's gonna be a lot of complaints, and there's gonna be a lot of F1 are not doing this right. F1 need to improve on this area. So it's not. We just hope that this season the rules are gonna be followed, and yeah, that's it. And just lastly, Drive to Survive season 4 will be back. It returns March 11th on Netflix. Excited for that? I think it will be
Yeah,
great.
looking forward to it. I mean, we've seen how good the first 3 seasons are, and arguably Lewis Hamilton dominated those seasons that Netflix were filming. But I mean, last year was one of the all-time great Formula One seasons. So it'll be interesting to see what Netflix have done, just how different, I suppose, it looks to the previous 3 years. And I'm looking forward to the episode on Abu Dhabi just to see their take on it. But hopefully they don't over dramatize anything. I think Max Verstappen said during last year that he wasn't going to be part of it because of how they did things, some of the audio that they used, I think, in 2021 was not matched up to the right moments in races. I think they used, I think it was a race in Austria when they were talking about Lando Norris and Carlos Sainz potentially being rivals, yet they, in reality, they were pretty good friends. There wasn't really much sort of aggression or rivalry between them, and yet
Yeah.
Netflix made it out like there was. So I can understand Verstappen's reasons for not taking part, but yeah, hopefully it'll be entertaining. And again, it's a good driver of getting new fans into the sport. I think he's getting more eyes on F1, and yeah, I'm very looking forward to it. It'll be nice to to watch on the way to work and back.
Yeah, definitely. I agree with everything that you've said. So yeah, just finishing off there. Remember, we've got 3 more car launches to come. With Mercedes are launching tomorrow, their W13 car. It should be a good launch. And then I think towards the end of the month, we have Alpine on the 21st of February, and finishing off with Alfa Romeo on the 27th. So it should be some good car launches coming up to before testing. So we just want to say hope you've enjoyed it, and don't forget to follow us on Twitter at F1Stop Show, Instagram as well. You can follow us there on F1Stop Show Pod, and you can also email us at F1Stop Show at gmail.com. So I've been your host, Samuel Oni. We hope you've enjoyed the episode. It's a goodbye from me, bye bye, and goodbye from Wes.
Bye bye.